In this video, I'll summarize the plot of the Metamorphosis in about 4 minutes and give you an analysis of the story. The novella begins with Gregor Samsa, a travelling salesman, waking up to find that he is transformed into a giant insect. Despite this shocking change, his first thoughts are about his job. He worries about missing work and the consequences of being late. Gregor is the sole provider for his family, which includes his aging parents and younger sister Greta. He attempts to get out of bed and communicate with his family, but his new form makes movement difficult. When his manager arrives at the house to check on him, Gregor struggles to open the door. When he finally does, his grotesque appearance terrifies everyone, causing his manager to flee. His father, in a panic, forces him back into his room, injuring him in the process. As Gregor becomes accustomed to his new form, his family struggles to cope with the situation. Greta takes on the responsibility of feeding him, bringing him rotting food, which he now prefers over fresh meals. She initially shows kindness, but her care is rooted more in duty than affection. Gregor finds comfort in his room, hiding under furniture and climbing the walls. However, his presence is a burden on the family. His father, who had been financially dependent on him, is forced to return to work, while his mother and sister take on new responsibilities. Over time, Gregor's isolation deepens. The family removes furniture from his room, supposedly to give him more space, but this also strips him of his last connections to his humanity. When his mother enters the room and sees him clinging to the wall, she faints in shock. Gregor rushes to help, but his father misinterprets his actions and violently attacks him, throwing an apple that becomes lodged in his back, causing a wound that never heals. Meanwhile, Greta, once his caregiver, begins to resent him. The family takes in lodgers to make ends meet, and Gregor is increasingly seen as an inconvenience. One evening, Gregor, drawn by the sound of Greta playing the violin, emerges from his room. The lodgers, upon seeing him, react with disgust and refuse to pay rent. This is the breaking point for the family. Greta insists that Gregor is no longer her brother, but merely a creature that must be gotten rid of. Her parents, though reluctant, agree. Realizing that he is no longer wanted, Gregor retreats to his room, deeply wounded by the rejection of the one person who had once shown him kindness. That night, Gregor dies alone in his room. When the family discovers his body the next morning, they feel an overwhelming sense of relief rather than grief. The charwoman disposes of his remains without ceremony, and the family immediately moves on. They decide to start fresh, moving to a smaller apartment and focusing on Greta's future, seeing in her a new source of hope. The novella ends with the family feeling rejuvenated, as though Gregor's death has freed them from their burdens. One of the central themes of the Metamorphosis is alienation. Even before his transformation, Gregor was isolated. He worked tirelessly to support his family, with little personal fulfillment. His metamorphosis into an insect only makes his exclusion literal, as he is locked away, feared, and ultimately discarded. His inability to communicate further emphasizes his separation from human connection. The novella critiques the dehumanizing effects of modern life, suggesting that people can become alienated not just through physical transformation, but also through societal expectations and familial obligations. Gregor's transformation exposes the family's dependence on him and their unwillingness to support him when he can no longer provide for them. Initially, they are horrified by his condition, but still feel obligated to care for him. However, as time passes, their patience wears thin, and their true feelings emerge. Greta, once sympathetic, eventually sees Gregor as a burden. His father, previously weak and dependent, regains his authority when Gregor is no longer useful. The story highlights the harsh reality of conditional love. Once Gregor can no longer fulfill his role as provider, he is discarded, showing how individuals can be valued only for their utility rather than their inherent worth.